Part 4. Fourth thought, karma. When the time comes for even a king to depart, neither his riches nor loved ones, relatives, and friends will follow. Wherever beings abide, wherever they go, karma alone follows them like a shadow. The three realms blaze with the sufferings of old age and sickness, and there is no protector from the raging flames of death. Born into cyclic existence, beings dwell continually in ignorance, circling like bees trapped in a jar. We all know that everyone wants happiness just as much as we do, and that no one wants to suffer any more than we do. This understanding of our common ground is the basis of meditation practice and meditation in action. Gentleness, kindness, and unbiased compassion for all sentient beings are necessary simply because all sentient beings want happiness just as much as we do. But simply wanting it won't make it happen. For that, we must truly understand karma, the law of cause and effect, the law of karma. Buddhism is a non-theistic philosophy. We do not believe in a creator, but in the causes and conditions that create certain circumstances that then come to fruition. This is called karma. It has nothing to do with judgment. There is no one keeping track of our karma and sending us up above or down below. Karma is simply the wholeness of a cause or first action and its effect or fruition, which then becomes another cause. In fact, one karmic cause can have many fruitions, all of which can cause thousands more creations. Just as a handful of seed can ripen into a field full of grain, a small amount of karma can generate limitless effects. Every conditioned phenomenon, human beings, the environment, and so on, is the effect of individual or collective karma manifesting in completely diverse ways. For example, we can talk about first karma, the reverberation of one karma striking or coming together with another. One karmic moment can immediately split into the 10 directions and 3 times, and each of those 10 directions can again explode into 10 more directions. The expansion and multiplicity of karma is said to be like a billion universes colliding with another billion universes. This is the fruition aspect of karma, which we will talk about in more detail later. So karma does not just refer to big blocks of anger, ignorance, or negative emotions. It can be subtle. A flicker of movement, a simple nod of the head to indicate a feeling, a subtle movement of the eyes can establish karmic cause and eventual fruition. The textures of our sense perceptions, sights, sounds, smells, touch, tastes, and thoughts, create hundreds of karmic causes at every moment. The moment we shift from our fundamental ground, we create a karmic cause that produces some effect for better or worse. Contemplation. Our entanglement with sensory display leads to actions that create karma. Reflect on the fact that in this precious and pure moment, all attachment and aggression could completely disintegrate. Nevertheless, we detour again and again into the display of the senses. The samsaric cycle continues, and all our hard work becomes meaningless and lacking in benefit or fruition. Suffering is meeting every fresh moment, absolutely capable of transforming it, and not taking the opportunity to do so. What could be sadder than that? Karma can be intentional or unintentional. The actions we're aware of and those we're not aware of, which are most of our actions, produce karmic effects for ourselves and others. To understand how this works, we need to watch ourselves in action and understand our potential for immensely diverse karmic production, good and bad. We can also talk about collective karma. The karma of many sentient beings bringing a lack of awareness to their actions can lead to the collective fruition of war, famine, and diseases that are experienced by everyone. All the pain and suffering in samsara are the result of individual or collective karmic creation. As individuals or groups, on a tribal or national level, or just within samsara as a whole, we are all creating karma and being affected by the karma created by others. Similarly, others are creating karma and being affected by the karma we create. There is always this interchange of karma. At the same time, karma can be changed. Karma is exhaustible and impermanent, creating positive and negative karma. The simplest way to understand good and bad karma is this: virtuous actions produce virtuous results, and negative actions produce negative results. Good karma produces a good fruition such as happiness, and bad karma comes to fruition as suffering. The fundamental discipline of Buddhism is to abandon unvirtuous actions and cultivate virtuous action. To know which actions to abandon, we need to know what unvirtuous actions are. In general, they are any actions arising out of non-awareness and self-clinging. In particular, they are actions contaminated by the three root poisons: aggression, attachment, and ignorance, which together with pride and jealousy are known as the 5 root poisons. When any of these root poisons creep into the actions of our body, speech, and mind, whether we're aware of it or not, those actions are unvirtuous. When we see how much pain and suffering our self-clinging causes, we may feel a sense of guilt, regret, or blame. It's important to look at this carefully. To truly understand karma, the words guilt, regret, and blame aren't necessary. We need only know its cause. The root cause of karma is ignorance, and acting out of ignorance was not our intention. If we intended to be ignorant and generate suffering, there might be something to blame or regret. But exactly whom are we going to burn at the stake? That's something to contemplate. We have to understand the totality of samsara. We can talk about how it all comes down to ignorance and self-grasping with all its habitual tendencies, but what good comes from this unfortunate point? The real point is to appreciate our inherent awareness and develop our human potential. Contemplation. Awareness is the ground of good karma and the fruition of happiness. Seeing your negative tendencies and ignorance should only cause you to strengthen that positive ground. Your good human qualities far outweigh and are far superior to any negative circumstances. There is also the tremendous potential inherent in external circumstances. Given this positive ground, you could completely liberate all confusion and ignorance this very moment. This is the essential way for a meditator to train the mind. If we recognize suffering and don't do anything to change it, we only succumb further. Instead of overcoming the problem with wisdom and compassion, we keep coming back to the problem. This is precisely what is meant by habitual patterns. This is the ignorance we've been stuck in all along, and the root cause of suffering. To cut this root, we need discipline and an understanding of how to create good karma, if only from the point of view of not harming others. Out of compassion for sentient beings, we have a responsibility to bring more awareness to our relationship with the world. Each moment of the day, we perform limitless actions deeply embedded with selfishness, grasping, aggression, or ignorance. Because they are too numerous to count, they're summed up as 10 unvirtuous actions. The 10 unvirtuous actions. There are 10 actions that we must become completely aware of and completely abandon in our lives. Bringing them to mind often reminds me of monastics about to take ordination. When we first hear the vows, we're so enthusiastic and confident that we will never commit any of the root downfalls. After all, none of us goes around stealing or killing or telling lies. But after taking the vows and observing ourselves more carefully, we find there's hardly any action that doesn't hurt someone or cause some kind of harm. Because of that awareness, we're able to train ourselves to become better. Sometimes people get very rigid and tense trying to be good, disciplined, and ethical. Tension can also arise when we become more aware of the immense amount of destruction seen and unseen, intentional and unintentional, that our mere physical existence causes. From a Buddhist point of view, however, this is what it means to be born in samsara, and this is why we need to attain freedom from samsara. The actions we must completely abandon are divided into 3 unvirtuous actions of body, 4 unvirtuous actions of speech, and 3 unvirtuous actions of mind. The 3 unvirtuous actions of body: killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. Killing can be understood in many ways. We create subtle killing karma every moment of our lives. Nevertheless, killing has to combine with some degree of intent. For an action to fully arise as the karma of killing, we must have the intention to kill and then perform the act. This means we intend to kill, we plan the act, and we make no mistake about whom we're killing. To kill even a small insect, for example, we must identify the insect, have the intention to kill it, and act upon that. To perform the act of killing completely, we must act with aggression. This is what is known as killing. In Tibetan, killing also implies that until the sentient being is completely dead, the intention to kill is continuous. The main thing here is the heaviness of the karma of killing. The karma of some killing activities may be less intense due to the absence of a strong intention or desire to kill, the absence of an intended being, or the absence of aggression. Although, as long as the act is completed, there is aggression. We need to understand killing from all these perspectives and not necessarily feel that we're going to the hell realms because of unintentionally taking life. Killing needs to be properly understood. Stealing, the second unvirtuous action of body, means taking something that doesn't belong to us. Whatever means we use, rank, physical strength, authority, verbal skills, flattery, threats, or other actions or tricks to take what does not belong to us or is not willingly given to us is stealing. Now again, most of us don't think we go about stealing things, but stealing is the one thing we may do more often than anything else. Even the intent or wish through envy or jealousy to have something that doesn't belong to us can be seen as stealing. So contemplate carefully what it means to take what doesn't belong to you. Sexual misconduct, the third unvirtuous action of body, refers to the pain or harm we inflict on another, our partner or anyone else, for the fulfillment of our own wishes. Our intention and physical actions express only self-indulgence. We are not at all sensitive to the feelings, nature, or state of mind of the other person. Not being aware of another's needs while continuing to fulfill our own is said to be sexual misconduct. To take advantage of someone who is unwilling or reluctant to hurt someone's feelings, or to inflict harm in any way, these things need to be seen as sexual misconduct. These three unvirtuous actions of the body need to be carefully understood. The four unvirtuous actions of speech: lying, slander, harsh speech, and idle chatter. Lying means not speaking the truth. The intention is to fool or deceive someone or to intentionally give misinformation. For our own personal gain, we knowingly say something that's not true. The act of lying is complete when the intention to deceive completely convinces another that what we are saying is true, when in fact it's not. And lying is not only linked with speech. A sign given through bodily actions could also be a lie. If we don't want to answer a question, we might shrug our shoulders and walk away. So physical actions can also support deception. People often ask if it would be better to lie in order to help someone than to tell the truth and harm the person. If we think about this carefully, we'll see that the definition of lying talks about the intention to deceive someone for personal gain. If a lie is not for our own benefit, it doesn't fully meet the definition of the unvirtuous act of lying. Of course, there is some karmic negativity with any act of lying, and that karma will come to fruition for us. But if that lie benefits someone else, it is far more virtuous than telling the truth. Slander, or sowing discord through speech, is the second unvirtuous act of speech. It's an unvirtuous action because we want to sow the seed of discord for our own benefit. Between two people or two groups, for example, we use speech to create a sense of suspicion that results in discord. The impact of sowing discord through speech can vary. When the act comes to fruition, the karma is complete. The karma may be lessened if the act does not come to completion. If others are not convinced of what we say, for example, the karma is not complete. So we need to understand the various aspects of this slander. Harsh speech is the third unvirtuous act of speech. This is speech with the intention to harm. We might say something negative or critical to hurt someone's feelings. If our criticism is heard, it destroys that person's peace of mind, which is said to be the complete action of harsh speech. Idle chatter or gossip is the fourth unvirtuous action of speech. Idle chatter means speaking on any topic in a way that supports non-awareness in ourselves or others. It is speech that distracts the mind, causing it to wander from the fundamental ground and grasp at various forms of entertainment. Creating such a ground of non-awareness is gossip or idle chatter. Terdug Lingpa refers to idle chatter as the main reason for the creation of karma. If we examine carefully, we'll see that most of our speech that is not slander, harsh speech, or lies falls into the category of idle chatter or gossip. Idle chatter is the action on which we waste the most time, so it is particularly harmful since it wastes this precious human existence and accomplishes absolutely no benefit for anyone. Contemplation. The best way to benefit another person is through selflessness. Remember that it's not about the constant creation of good karma, it's about maintaining the discipline and karma of genuine selflessness. A seemingly unvirtuous action can arise as a virtuous action if the intention is selfless. This is how we should look at things. The three unvirtuous actions of mind: covetousness, wishing harm on others, and wrong view. Covetousness means seeing and wanting for ourselves the possessions of others: homes, families, wealth, rank, knowledge, wisdom, abilities, beauty, power, and other desirable qualities. Rather than strengthening our own positive qualities, we reflect on what we do not have, which gives rise to jealousy, depression, or disappointment in ourselves. Covetousness is about poverty mentality. Instead of focusing on strengthening the ground of our own practices, we give in to feeling sorry for ourselves. This is the negative action of covetousness. Wishing harm on others, the second unvirtuous action of mind, means genuinely wanting another sentient being to suffer. It is our wish that they come to harm, that unfortunate circumstances befall them, or that we ourselves could, through an act of body, speech, or mind, cause them maximum pain and harm. Wrong view is the third unvirtuous action of mind. Simply put, wrong view is not having confidence in cause and effect. This is the result of not understanding the various experiences of samsaric existence: birth into a samsaric realm, the suffering of sentient beings in samsara, and the value or significance of the three jewels. Where these things are not contemplated and understood, confidence does not arise. This is the ground of wrong view. Wrong view is not about believing one thing as opposed to another. Wrong view means not allowing truth to arise in the mind, not a Buddhist or non-Buddhist truth, but human truth, the truth of human potential, and what this human life can actually create. The real meaning of wrong view is that in spite of understanding this, we don't do anything about it. We understand the potential of this human life and do not put it into practice. Wrong view, therefore, is about the truth of suffering. The truth is that all sentient beings want happiness, but the truth of karma does not allow that happiness to arise. The point here is to abandon the wrong view of not believing in cause and effect. Having confidence in karma inspires us to be more aware of the actions of our body, speech, and mind. In this way, we don't inflict harm on others, and we can actually generate some good, some cause of happiness for ourselves and others. Freedom from wrong view is freedom from carelessness or non-awareness. This includes our unintentional actions, unintentional killing, unintentional lying, unintentionally inflicting harm. While these may not be fully unvirtuous actions, they must also be abandoned. We cannot simply say, "Oh, this isn't reality killing," and therefore not regret that karma. The point is to relate to our unvirtuous actions and to cultivate their opposites, the 10 virtuous actions. The fruition of negative karma. Fruition can be understood in various ways. First, we can talk about general fruition, which refers to the intention with which karma is generated. We can have high, medium, or low levels of intention, which determine corresponding levels of karmic fruition. The resulting karma, if anger arises, for example, is determined by whether the intention is great, medium, or slight. If there was no intention to harm anyone, there is little karmic fruition. If our words, thoughts, or deeds contained a powerful intention to cause harm and resulted in the act of killing, the fruition would be rebirth in the hell realm. With medium intention, we would be reborn in the hungry ghost realm, and with little intention in the animal realm. Similarly, our actions could lead to birth in the God, jealous God, or human realm. The kind and degree of suffering depend on the degree of intention. Contemplation. The distance between this moment sitting with the assuredness of a meditator reflecting on these sufferings and actually experiencing the suffering of the lower realms is the distance of a single breath. Between inhaling and exhaling, your breath could be disrupted or lose its life force, and death would occur. Your accumulated karma could then lead to such experiences. Believe it or not, it's absolutely possible. Reflect, therefore, on the ground of your experience and really strengthen that ground with awareness. Exert effort to overcome any little problems or obstacles and to transcend any fears or confusion. At this moment, you have the possibility of purifying the ground of negative karma. It's essential to go in that direction. The fruition of karma depends on its cause. Because of steeline, we might face poverty throughout our life. Sexual misconduct is said to result in argumentative spouses and marital discord in the next lifetime. Because of lying, we could face criticism, false accusations, and treachery throughout our life. Because of sowing discord, we could face disharmony and argument at all times. Harsh speech might result in constantly hearing negative things said about us and being insulted and belittled. Because of gossip, people might not trust what we say. Our speech won't inspire trust in their minds, and our words will carry no weight. Covetousness could result in none of our hopes being fulfilled and bring about unwanted circumstances and conditions. The intention to harm could come to fruition as a human life filled with fear and constant harm. And wrong view could cause us to succumb to ignorance throughout our life, no matter how much we'd like to free ourselves, and to suffer from deceit and misconceptions. But the karmic fruition of a particular type of karmic action is not always the same. We can't simply say that all killing leads to the hell realm. Taking life unintentionally or without the motivation of aggression may result in some painful experience or disability in the human realm, for example. We might be very well born and endowed with many good qualities, but live a very short life, which is not to say that everyone who lives a short life has killed. People often ask, does a short life necessarily mean that someone has killed in a previous life? The answer is no. There are diverse causes and fruitions of karma. It may be that we don't experience any karmic fruition in this life. Karmic fruition can be experienced immediately or after a few days, months, or even lifetimes. Again, we must understand the diversity of karmic fruition. The karma of killing might become more gross or powerful over time, and then in the next lifetime. Although we're born in the human realm endowed with all the qualities and potential for a good life, karma comes to fruition as the desire to kill. We might like the notion of killing and want to continue killing until it becomes a habitual pattern. So killing might come to fruition as a habitual pattern rather than a short life. Watching people's habitual patterns, we can see the subtle ways in which karma comes to fruition. On the other hand, we might be completely free from fruition, which arises instead in the environment. As a result of killing, we might be born in a war-torn or violent country where there's a lack of medicine or food. Stealing could result in a decrease in wealth, health, and other positive circumstances in the land. Sexual misconduct could result in an entire land suffering from various diseases or famine. Lying, harsh speech, or gossip could result in a country where no crops grow, such as a desert where the land is dry and unable to produce grain, water, or happiness, and karmic fruition is experienced as the extreme suffering of all sentient beings. So the karma of killing and other unvirtuous actions can come to fruition as collective karma that ripens in the environment. Now, one individual's act of killing is not going to result in an entire land facing famine or violence, but the ongoing karma of many sentient beings can lead to the collective fruition of war, famine, and diseases experienced by everyone. So again, we can see the diversity of karmic fruition, the 10 virtuous actions, and the fruition of Dharma, positive karma. At this point, we can talk about the fruition of positive karma. The 10 virtuous actions of body, speech, and mind are the exact opposite of unvirtuous actions, namely awareness of body, awareness of speech, and awareness of mind. Bringing awareness to all our activities brings karma to the path of practice. To take this as our path, we must 1. Recognize our actions of body, speech, and mind, 2. Discern between virtuous and unvirtuous actions, and 3. Free all our actions from the contamination of ignorance, desire, or attachment. If we focus too much on the blackness and bleakness of karma, we forget about the brightness of virtue. That should not happen in the mind of the meditator. Positive karma also comes to fruition. Just as negative karma leads to birth in the lower realms, the power of positive karma creates even greater positive fruition. As with negative karma, the fruition of positive karma is connected with motivation. Even a moment of awareness combined with the motivation of compassion toward all sentient beings can result in a vast expanse of good karma that genuinely benefits others. If a moment of unawareness can cause us to succumb to ignorance and cause suffering, a moment of awareness can bring the mind back and cause limitless benefit. Virtuous actions are also motivated by greater, medium, and lesser motivation. Lesser motivation has to do with giving rise to happiness or benefit for oneself. Medium motivation is able to connect with others to some extent, friends, families, and so on. And the greatest motivation is the vastness of compassion for all sentient beings. Traditionally, it is said that birth in the upper realms is actually quite easy to attain, simply by leading a decent life. Some texts say that the kinds of lives most of us live almost guarantee birth in the upper realms. Every moment we spend sustaining life is a virtuous action. All the actions of our body, speech, and mind that are not only for our own survival but for the well-being of family, community, and human life are virtuous actions, as is the treasuring of our own body and life. There is the fruition of good karma in all of this. With the greater motivation to benefit limitless beings in whatever way possible, simply being alive allows virtuous karma to be limitless. This is the way positive fruition works. The various kinds of fruition of positive karma are long life, not having enemies or difficulties with anyone adverse to us, hearing praises and other good things said about ourselves, easily developing trust and faith with others, having genuine happiness and peace of mind, and having our hopes and expectations fulfilled. Through our accumulating positive karma, these positive fruitions arise. Contemplation. Our birth was not merely the fruition of negative karma, but also the realization of the 18 qualities with which we are now endowed. Just being able to read and understand these profound instructions is the fruition of the virtuous karma we have accumulated, which can therefore be taken further. This virtuous karma also affects the entire environment. A single positive thought can arise as peace in the environment. A single compassionate thought dedicated to sentient beings can arise in innumerable ways as the cause of happiness for limitless beings. Just as the power of negative karma can create unhappiness, the power of virtuous karma can create happy circumstances for sentient beings. We need to understand this. Earlier, we talked about a third motivation that is neither virtuous nor unvirtuous. This neutral motivation is a kind of sleep, stupor, or dullness that gives rise to neutral karma. Any action that doesn't arise from aggression or attachment is neutral. Eating without aggression or attachment, walking without aggression or attachment, and so on. Such actions can become beneficial if brought into awareness. Otherwise, they are indicative of ignorance, a waste of time, and need to be abandoned. Awareness is such a simple thing. Joined with the simple act of eating, for example, it brings the awareness of eating. With that awareness, we can dedicate the virtue of eating to all beings. Just as this eating satisfies my hunger, may all sentient beings enjoy the same satisfaction and be free from any unhappiness. May the enjoyment of this food arise as benefit for all beings. In this way, dedicate your actions with any positive thoughts you can generate. In the Bodhicharyavatara, Shantideva says that contemplating karma should give rise to a deep awareness that does not leave us even in sleep or dreams. Not constantly distracted by outer manifestations and judgments, we can truly cut through habitual tendencies of grasping and remain in awareness that is as constant as space. While actions are described as virtuous, unvirtuous, or neutral, we need to understand through contemplating karma that all actions are virtuous when they arise from a virtuous intention. Any action motivated by the benefit of others is a virtuous action. Any action motivated by self-gratification or self-indulgence, no matter how spiritual or ethical it may seem, is still a negative action. The main point is motivation. Karma continues as long as we create the cause. Without confidence in karma, we may still hope for happiness to fall into our lives from on high. Maybe our practices will dispel suffering and bring about enlightenment without our having to work hard or embody the teachings. Maybe we'll be the exceptional case on whom enlightenment will descend from space. This is like a very thirsty person who, instead of simply drinking the water he or she already has, puts it into a vessel with tea and milk, ties it to the top of a tree, lights a fire beneath it, and waits for it to boil, and meanwhile dies of thirst. Similarly, we have our teachers and teachings, our meditation cushions and shrines, and the motivation to do something good. But we sit down to meditate with the hope that something will happen. The tendency to wait and hope is very theistic and solid. It may not seem as solid as a creator up there, but a hope or expectation is definitely a creation, which is no different. Understanding this, all of us, on this or any other path, have a responsibility to look honestly at our lives in practice, karma and reincarnation. At this point, people often ask about reincarnation. Reincarnation is just an honorific term for karma. If you have some understanding of cause and effect, reincarnation is very easy to understand and not a big deal. Yes, we do talk about great teachers reincarnating from one life to another, and yes, from that perspective, great masters are able to remember previous lives. But reincarnation must be understood properly. It is not about flashbacks of previous lives, as many people imagine. It's about cause and effect and the karmic ground that we accumulate. When there are fewer negative emotions and habitual tendencies, the karmic ground is more clear. That clarity continues by virtue of not accumulating negative karma. Bodhisattvas and enlightened teachers are able to have continuous clarity of mind. Because the karma of clarity is continuous, it is easier for clarity to manifest and easier to pick up on. The maturation of clear karma, which arises as clear awareness or wisdom, occurs much more quickly and is much more connected with the activities of their lives. Ordinary people like us have to deal with a mishmash of virtuous and unvirtuous karma, which takes more time. It's the difference between a clear path and a thorny, bushy path where we must make our way more carefully. Our ordinary reincarnation is all about karma and fruition, which creates more karma, and so on contemplation. Milarepa taught that if you want to know who you were in your previous life or who you will be in the future, you have only look to this present life. If your life is good and comfortable, endowed with favorable circumstances and qualities, then you will know that you were a virtuous person in your previous life, which was definitely led with some awareness. Similarly, to know what your next life will be like, you have only to look at the kinds of actions, or karma, you are accumulating now. This is the foundation of the next realm or kind of environment into which you'll be born. Examine your life carefully. Contemplate the number of years that you've lived and the kind of karma you've accumulated until now. No matter how enlightened we may be, no matter how immense our compassion and understanding, if we are born of a father and mother as a human being in this world system, we are subject to karma. Our previous karma may be very clear, but the important thing is the karma we create in this life. It doesn't take long for crystal clear karma to become muddy. That's always a possibility. Clarity of karma can manifest in varying degrees in the reincarnations of teachers and their activities, which is an honorific term for a teacher's karma. The awareness that must be maintained for clarity of karma to continue is the same for all sentient beings. Purification of body, speech, and mind. Practically speaking, it is very difficult but essential to bring the mind back to awareness and free ourselves from the habitual patterns that create karma. The path of training the mind therefore introduces various practices. Purification of body includes practices such as sitting meditation, circumambulation, and prostrations, which physically bring the mind back to awareness and free the body from creating negative karma. Such physical spiritual practices enable us to develop and maintain awareness and to transform habitual tendencies of the body so that instead of harming others, our physical actions become beneficial. Purification of speech includes practices such as reciting praises, supplications, prayers, or mantras. These skillful means transform speech by overcoming habitual patterns and negative tendencies. Mantra practice, for example, uses the same essential power of speech to create the ground of more virtuous karma. If we are unable to let go of harmful speech gossip, idle chatter, and all speech that creates negative karma, we can rely on these practices to transform our speech into something compassionate and beneficial for all sentient beings. Purification of mind includes skillful means such as devotion, confidence, faith, revulsion for samsara, the four thoughts that transform the mind, and the generation of loving kindness and compassion for sentient beings through Tonglen. Such practices transform the mind so that it generates virtuous instead of unvirtuous actions. Without such supports, mind will continue thinking in its habitual ways and give rise to all the same thoughts. To bring the mind back to awareness, we must rely on skillful supports, contemplation, visualization, recitation, or meditation that are free from self-grasping. It is essential to understand the influence of mind on our words and deeds. When the mind is trained, it immediately brings awareness to the body, to speech, and to our thoughts. In this way, we create a more favorable ground, less contaminated with the three root poisons. The main thing to understand from contemplating karma is that all actions have a motivation, and that motivation needs to be examined. For this, we must turn inward and develop awareness of body, speech, and mind. Then we will not only aspire to selfless compassion and generosity, we will actually be able to put them into practice. Our contemplation should lead to the discipline of not creating harmful karma. As much as possible, no action of our body, speech, or mind should arise from non-awareness or distraction. No one needs the karma of harming others due to a momentary lack of awareness, not when deep down in our hearts, our intention is to help all sentient beings. The fruition of contemplating the four reminders. The fruition of contemplating the four reminders is known as letting go of the three graspings and giving rise to the three exertions. We could call them the three types of letting go and the three accomplishments. We won't have any benefit from our practices, no matter how much we meditate, visualize, recite mantras, or do any spiritual practice until we generate the three letting goes and the three accomplishments. First is letting go of grasping at our various activities and attachments. This is the fruition of contemplating the preciousness and impermanence of human life. As a result, we understand the importance of creating the ground for rebirth in the three higher realms, by which we mean specifically a favorable human existence where we might meet with even better circumstances than we enjoy now. Second is letting go of attachment to the extremes of samsara. This is the fruition of contemplating samsaric suffering and karma. With this comes the understanding that even birth in the upper realms is not a complete fruition. We then have a deeper understanding of liberation or enlightenment, which allows us to really transform our mind. At this point, we may run into a problem with poverty mentality, or what we could call weakened heart. Becoming more aware of our habitual patterns and seeing how we continue to give in to ignorance, we may struggle with a sense of inadequacy. In the chaos and confusion of ordinary life, we may not notice this problem. Given the time and space to reflect, however, we actually come into contact with an enormous amount of goodness. Poverty mentality is feeling that we cannot generate this goodness in ourselves. This leads us to believe in a very ordinary and inadequate self with all kinds of discursive thoughts that undermine our confidence in enlightenment. Without confidence, instead of exerting genuine effort and urgency in our practices, we tend to lessen our hope in fruition. Instead of strengthening this, we try to make that easier. If we make the fruition easier, we won't have to work so hard or transcend anything at all. Instead of enlightenment, we settle for something else. We Tibetans are very good at this. Hardly anyone talks about enlightenment these days. At most, we say, may I again be born as a human being, but with a better teacher, better conditions, in a better place, and not so poor. This is not a particularly Tibetan or Buddhist problem. It's our problem. In the beginning, we have maximum enthusiasm, but talk to those who've been Buddhists for 20 or 30 years. you will find that enlightenment is something said in passing. We may not even think about the next life. Instead, we think, may I be able to die without fear or regret? Or even worse, may I be able to hang on until the next retreat? To let go of the poverty mentality that can aspire only to be born again as a human being, contemplate the sufferings of samsara and karma, contemplation. It is important not to enter this path with half-hearted intentions or wrong motivation. Remember that poverty mentality is a key to misunderstanding, which opens up all kinds of unnecessary fears and anxieties. As you struggle with these unnecessary concepts, remember too that they will come up again and again in your life. It's important to understand this process from the very beginning. Then years from now, when these tendencies arise, you can say to yourself, oh yes, this is to be expected. This is what happens. This recollection will help overcome the impact of neurotic tendencies and allow them to dissolve. Remembering this generates strong confidence and honesty in your practice. Third is letting go of grasping at a self. This is the fruition of contemplating all of the four reminders. Grasping at a self includes grasping at our own liberation. In the beginning, of course, our main aspiration is, may I be able to attain enlightenment? Or may I be able to really benefit all sentient beings? We're highly motivated by these aspirations, but if we're honest about it, there's always that little hope of keeping a safe spot for ourselves. This brings a certain amount of deceit into our lives. We talk about benefiting all sentient beings when in fact we're aiming for individual liberation. As our understanding of the Buddhist view deepens, we can see the error in such statements. As a result, we develop the Mahayana understanding of true love and compassion. Contemplation. If you could have one human life forget about many lifetimes, just one human life grounded in sanity, it would be harmonious and positive. It would generate goodness for yourself and others, and be free from ignorance, selfishness, anger, attachment, greed, confusion, and chaos. Ask yourself if you are spending your life grasping at an individual self, which generates separation, judgments, and conflict with others. Are you so stuck on your own happiness, hoping to maintain it and fearing you cannot, that when a genuine taste of happiness does arise, it is always tainted with hope and fear? Contemplate the fruition of grasping at illusions and ask yourself if that's what you want. Selflessness in the beginning, middle, and end. At present, we are working with selfish reasoning. Selfish in the sense that, intentionally or unintentionally, I takes precedence. Selfishness arises as attachment to individual liberation. Now, it is true that prior to benefiting sentient beings, we have to work with the ground of self-liberation. Nevertheless, even if the mind isn't courageous enough to understand this, it is selflessness that brings about enlightenment. Selflessness means letting go of self in the beginning, letting go in the middle, and letting go in the end. When we are too self-focused, we think it's all about me and the hell realms, me and my ambition, me and sentient beings, me and my enlightenment. But, in fact, we are deeply affected by the karma of other sentient beings. Without sentient beings, there's no such thing as enlightenment. The good karma, good wishes, and Tun Glen of others are partly responsible for your reading this today. There is also the fact of Shakyamuni Buddha turn ein the wheel of Dharma, and the Sangha working very hard to create the right conditions for everyone to practice. And there is your own hard work, merit, compassion, and kindness. So it's a combined effort of everyone's karma working together. Interdependence is about the karmic patterns of a whole vast world system, and not just about my life and suffering, my wisdom and views, my body, mind, and thoughts. This kind of thinking shows a mistaken belief in a solid self, which we know cannot be established. So how can we be filled with pride and arrogance in the midst of this vast karmic creation? Grasping at a self that is so tiny compared with the vastness of the universe is a very ignorant thing to do. Yet when you put down this book, you will still think that I put it down. Appreciation of collective karma creates a greater sense of responsibility to generate the true fruition, which requires an enormous number of positive conditions. We ignore this when we think only of our own achievements. This egoistic approach must be checked. Otherwise, the day will come when we realize that others know more than we do, and we will be very upset. It was I who was going to save all sentient beings, and now I'm being shown the path by others. This is a very uncomfortable feeling. Trying to attain selflessness by preserving a self to benefit others is not only illogical, it is deceptive. It's just another example of ignorance trying to prove its existence and protect its territory. All practices and instructions are based on knowing which antidote to apply to obstacles. An obstacle is any tendency of conceptual mind that does not allow the pure intention and meaning of Dharma to arise. The most effective antidote for such obstacles is to contemplate the four reminders and generate genuine compassion. The antidote to any egoism is to rejoice in the achievements and merit of others. This includes all the Buddhas and bodhisattvas whose blessings and compassion made it possible for us to realize the ground of awareness. Rejoicing in the achievements of others can also alleviate suffering. The karma of suffering is lessened when we appreciate all the positive thoughts being generated toward us by others. When gratitude to others is understood, it becomes even more important to practice sincerely and honestly contemplation. To cut through selfishness, contemplate the four reminders and generate the Mahayana principle of bodhicitta. Generating the genuine compassion of loving kindness dispels the ignorance that grasps at individual liberation. Contemplating the four reminders and the selflessness arising from bodhicitta forms the foundation of right view. This is the view we need to take into meditation so that our meditation is not fabricated or conceptual. To generate enlightened mind, it is essential to spend time studying and contemplating these things.